All right, tonight it's interview night on the America Emboldened Network. I'm Chris Michaels. I'll be joined by Greg Bolden and our guests. We have a lot of questions of which way humanity is taking us because as we see things like 3I Atlas, transhumanism, artificial intelligence, all sorts of avenues are opening up to mankind, and it doesn't seem like it's all that safe. So our guest is going to help us navigate these troubled waters. We have Rebecca Hardcastle Wright, PhD. She's a pioneering voice at the intersection of consciousness, contact, planetary ethics, and governance innovation. She's the founder of the first post-disclosure organization, the Institute for Exoconsciousness, and a joint creator of the Planetary Constitution. Her initiatives are dedicated to empowering humanity to consciously co-create our planetary and multidimensional future. So let's welcome Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for
Greg,
the invitation.
I think you have a lot of questions going on in your head, rolling
I
around.
do.
The cogs are
Absolutely
clanking away about all of this. So, Rebecca, we stumbled upon you, or I think I did, and I just said, we've got to speak to this person. This is fantastic stuff. So give a little intro on yourself and tell us exactly what exoconsciousness is all about.
Exoconsciousness was a downloaded word that came to me, and it was around 2005. I had actually moved to Phoenix in 1992 and had joined an experiencer group. So I'm a childhood experiencer, and we could go into that if you're interested in it. And when I moved to Phoenix, someone came up to me and said, you know, you've got to meet Ruth Hover. And as it was, I moved out to Fountain Hills from North Scottsdale. And for the first time in my life, I joined this experiencer group of adults and was able to talk about what I had gone through as a child and how that had influenced me as an adult.
Now, when you say experiencer, what do you mean by that?
I was actually, I came in highly psychic. I came in with a lot of visitations. So I grew up in Clarksburg, West Virginia. So very Scotch-Irish, Celtic people.
Sure.
So I had a lot of visitations when I was young. My earliest memories, I got to around 3 years old, which is very, very common. It's usually around 3 or 4 if you're a childhood experiencer. But being the small town that it was, I was I was having contact with extraterrestrial beings, with the craft. All of that was coming into me during my childhood, and I was allowed to pretty much go out the door and run free during my childhood. And the other thing that happened was that I got pulled under the ground. So I went to the underworld as a child.
Gotcha.
And it was a very visceral experience for me. Clarksburg is full of holes. So there's mines there. It's very porous. Actually, there's this town called Bridgeport, nice name. And it houses a really nice golf course. And people from DC would fly in to play golf in Bridgeport at like a little private airstrip or whatever. And you would be on the golf cart trails and you could hear the emptiness underneath it. That's how porous the town was. And I just remember getting pulled under the ground, and it just seemed like when things happen to you and you're a child, you don't really have cognitive critical thinking abilities of this is bad, I shouldn't be doing this, or this should be scary. It was never a fearful experience for me. And then actually into adulthood, I started reading into shamanism, and I'm like, oh, I was just being a shaman as a child. I was going under the ground. I was going into these inner realms, but I always knew that there was some kind of connection between going underground and being on the craft, that those two phenomenon were related.
When you talk about this experience and you're standing there, is it like through your mind's eye that you're experiencing this? Can you talk about what was it about your kind of like state that allowed you to have that connection, do you think? Just in case there's people out there that are like, am I experiencing this? Am I in tune with this? How would you describe that to individuals for how they can experience that connection that you did to almost the shamanism of experiencing the underground?
Well, that really goes back to the definition of exoconsciousness. So in around 2005, I was a single mom. I'm raising kids at home. I've got to go to work. And my one of those, I had a radio alarm clock, and the radio goes off, and I'm like, oh, I got to get up, get the kids ready for school, pack lunches, get myself ready, go to work. And so I hit that snooze alarm. And when I hit that snooze alarm, I laid my head back down on the pillow, and the word exoconsciousness, it came into my body. I mean, it's kind of like biblical. It was like the word became flesh. It went into my flesh. It didn't go just into my head. It went into the flesh of my body. And I knew then that that was to be my work, that exoconsciousness was to be my work. And, living in Phoenix at the time during the Phoenix Lights, I was in this experiencer groups. Everybody went out to see the Phoenix Lights. Did I see the Phoenix Lights? No. Did any of my friends call me? No. And it was pretty obvious that I was not supposed to be a craft researcher, because most of them became craft researchers. And so I stayed with the consciousness. So we define exoconsciousness as the innate physical ability. So everybody, to your question, Greg, every human being, we believe, has the innate ability to connect, communicate, and co-create with extraterrestrials, multidimensionals, and spiritual beings. Now, some people connect with all three. We have a lot of people that come into our group that see Jesus or see angels or Mother Mary. It's very common. We have people that deal with earth spirits or go under the ground to do shaman type work. Just really amazing people doing that. And then we have people that are in the extraterrestrial contactee. That's been their experience. So I just kind of got a double dose, I guess I would say, with the shamanism. And now, when you're a child and you have these experiences, I did not have the ability to objectively, categorize what my experience was. I didn't have the words for it. I just had the experience. But I remember the visceral experience of being pulled under the ground, being with these beings, and then being pushed up out of the ground. Now, was that astral body? Honestly, I have no idea. I just know that it happened. I know that it was an experience. And it was something that I didn't feel forced to do. I didn't even know enough to know forced or not. I just didn't know because I was so young.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you made me remember a dream I had when I was probably 3 or 4 years old. I remember waking up and being just absolutely terrified. And I was not in my room. I was in like a jungle temple kind of environment. And I remember looking at the foot of my bed and seeing, it sounds stupid, sounds just like out of a Michael Crichton book, but I remember seeing gorillas dressed in golden armor. And this was one of the most realist experiences. I mean, I still remember it, 3.5 decades later. So it must have had some kind of impact on me. So I can kind of understand what you mean about almost being channeled into a completely different realm and going through that experience. Now,
and I also want to add, most of my childhood experiences took place in daylight.
Oh, interesting.
So there was some bedroom phenomena, but primarily it was in the daylight.
Really? Now, I was always under the impression that West Virginia is a very psychic area. I guess it is.
I was on an interview the other day with a guy that was a Navy SEAL, and he goes, "Where'd you grow up?" And I said, "Oh, I grew up in West Virginia." He goes, "What happens in West Virginia?" And to be transparent, I've spent much of my life trying to figure out what happened to me. Mm-hmm. And that path, of course, logically led into mind control, MK Ultra, all of these types of phenomenon that went on in the 40s and the 50s.
Do you believe you were involved in anything like that, or?
I don't know, because it's easy. Well, I'm a therapist, so I see a lot of people that come out of military families,
sure,
or medical families, that have very definitive MK Ultra type experiences in hospitals or in military bases. I did not have that. The only trail, the only breadcrumb trail I could take is that my father and my mother were married, and my father went to Columbia to get his PhD, and that's CIA Central.
Sure.
Yeah. How about ever remember when you were younger in a classroom experience being pulled out of class for testing, almost like a gifted program? Nothing.
I did. I remember they would come in and do like educational experiments on us every now and then.
Yep.
But I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious if, because it's funny. I talked to somebody that I really thought would know exactly what MK Ultra was just about a month ago, actually maybe 2 months ago now. And they were like, well, what is it? I'm going, you don't know MK Ultra? And so I'm always shocked that a lot of people don't know the government experiments that have gone on throughout the years that are now public documents. And they didn't pay attention to the fact that people were under mind control. They were experimenting that if you say a certain word, it would get somebody to do a certain action. But this concept, like for me, from a psychic energy standpoint, my psychic energy has always been either while I'm asleep, I have dead relatives that come and tell me things when I'm asleep, or it is more in the dark or when I'm being silent. I've had very spiritual experiences. I believe that I have had Mary come to visit me. And I've had things that have moved me to tears in those moments. I have not experienced that in broad daylight, except for once I met somebody who I'm told after they didn't actually exist. They weren't there. And I was completely sober, by the way. I don't do anything. But it was just a wild experience to hear that. So that's why I was very curious about how you were experiencing this while you're standing there. And, I love the fact that you said the word was downloaded, because I've heard that often when speaking with Laurie Elizabeth from Seeker's Insights, and speaking with people that have talked with the records. They often talk about how they download information into consciousness. And so this exoconsciousness, I think this is going to be a fun conversation tonight. This is going to be great. I'm looking forward to this, Michaels.
So absolutely.
When I was a child, I was, my father was a minister, and so a clergy in a church. And my mother would always read us this book when I was a small child, If Jesus Came to My House. And I remember looking at my mom and going, Jesus comes to our house. I don't know why. We really don't need to read this book. There's a lot of, so just to, again, for transparency. So, I just came in highly psychic. I would say things, I would know things. And it sometimes, most of the time, it didn't go over very well. And then I ended up, actually like 5th or 6th grade, I stammered, like words wouldn't come out of my mouth anymore. And that lasted until I was in college, almost through college, that I had that situation, because I think I was silenced for so long. And, with silence comes shame, and with shame comes a lot of ability to control, what's going on. So that's why I really like doing the work I do, the coaching and the therapy work, working with other experiencers, because just to alleviate, especially the shame over who you are and what you know.
Yeah, that's funny, because I'm a Reiki master. So that opened up a lot of abilities when I became certified. And so if I walk into a room, I can hear thoughts. And it took me a while to realize before that's oh, that's not my thought. That's somebody else's. So during my early 20s, dating a girl, I'm thinking certain things. And it took me a long time to realize that that's not my thought. I'm actually picking up on others' emotions and others' thoughts, because you could sit there and you can go, why am I in a foul mood? I'm just sitting here. There's nothing going on. And it turns out that somebody else is giving you the whammies behind your back.
Yeah.
And, doing all the psychic stuff to you unconsciously. That's probably one of the more interesting aspects of people that have any sort of abilities, when they don't realize they have abilities. And so you're in the room and it's just this tidal wave of energy sometimes, and you go, holy smokes. Step back from that.
Yeah, it's like, being an empath, it's the same thing. I pick up on the emotions in the room,
Right.
and all of a sudden I'm like, why am I sad? And I'll look over at a couple of people and be like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm feeding into the energy that those people have over there. Like
Yeah.
this actually makes a lot of sense. So understanding then that the energy that we give off as human beings are all connected. In my classroom, I talk about how we are manifestations of light. We are all part of an electromagnetic universe. We can see this scientifically in the way that this broadcast is coming to you right now, whether you're streaming it wirelessly from a Wi-Fi signal. It's manifestations of radio waves, of the visible and invisible light spectrum. Our brain waves, visible, invisible light spectrum. We are currently being powered this way. Our consciousness is a literal light manifestation. And so this exoconsciousness that the Institute talks about, your Institute, it really does a beautiful job in explaining kind of what we just set up here at the beginning with both you, Chris, and myself, talk about how we experience life, whether it's psychic energy, whether it's Reiki, whether it's me with the empath type of stuff. It's all connected. Can you talk to us a little bit about the interconnectedness of both humanity and energy in the 21st century? And I'm picking that on purpose to say where we are in modern culture with all this connectivity, because I think that that's going to lead us to the Planetary Constitution and get us into some really good conversation here this evening.
Well, one of the primary missions of the Institute for Exoconsciousness is the protection, preservation, and advancement of natural human consciousness. So not only do we believe that psychic abilities are common and ordinary, I'm so tired of we're super experiencers, or, we're some kind of special breed of hybrid. That's just silliness. And, we're just humans, and we all have this if we choose to use them. And just the whole idea that natural human consciousness, as you referred to, we're all light beings, we all live in this connected web of light, is such a precious thing that, quite frankly, we don't understand. We don't understand DNA. We don't understand plasma, because that's been taken off the shelf and, put somewhere else, so that we can't know that we're a plasma being. And, oh, I brought in an orb. Boy, of course you brought in an orb. It's plasma. It's intelligent. It's on the same frequency that you are. Of course you brought that in. It's not anything that people need to pay $1,000 a month to have happen. And so we really began to see. So I'll kind of tell a little story here. So I in around 2008 or 2009. So 2008, I published my first book, Exoconsciousness, Your 21st Century Mind. I go on my first little book tour kind of thing, and I'm at a conference talking about it, and I get a call from Edgar Mitchell to come and work with him, the Apollo 14 astronaut. And the reason he asked me to come work with him and his team of scientists was because I'm an experiencer, and he had a lot of high regard. He had high regard for experiencers. And so I left Exoconsciousness behind, and I went to work with Edgar. And my husband and I moved to Washington, D.C. because we have a lot of kids, and some of them were adults by then, and they had moved to the East Coast. They actually moved to Washington, D.C. area. My husband was from there. So we packed up and we moved to Washington, D.C., and I became the Washington, D.C. representative for Edgar's contract organization. So we were exploring and lobbying for 0-point energy, the extraterrestrial presence, and consciousness. So a lot happened with that, and got all involved in WikiLeaks. We could talk about that if you want to. But while I'm living there, I'm really friendly. I mean, I'm nice, I'm friendly, I'm kind. And people tell me things, or I ask questions and then they tell me things. And so this is around probably 2013 on, because we left about 2017. So about 4 years, I am just getting hit with transhumanism and AI, just full frontal hit, to the point where I lived in an apartment complex at one point called Avalon, and it was across the street from the Genome Project. So,
wow.
And I'm meeting people that are like in the Genome Project or the Polymer Project, you know, standards of technology up campus. And I'm meeting people that work for DARPA, and I know people that work for DARPA. And because of my husband and friends that we had there, I was meeting people in all these different, you know, scientific and political areas. And all of a sudden, I'm a mom, I have grandchildren. All of a sudden, all the pieces just cascade in. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like I saw psychically where we were going. I saw that we were moving into AI transhumanism. And honestly, for about almost 2 years, I was researching. I knew I had to write a book, and I was researching, but I was so traumatized by what I saw that luckily we moved out of DC. And what I saw, what I heard, what I read, we moved out of DC. And actually, Edgar had passed away at that point. And so we decided to move back to Phoenix. And he actually came in to a channeler that's a member of our group, Kevin Briggs, and said, who did not know me, and said, tell Rebecca she needs to get out of there. It's not going to be safe for her. It's not going to be healthy. Actually, he said, I'm going to get sick if I stay there. So when we moved back to Phoenix, we made 2 moves. We lived in an apartment, and then we decided to buy a house here in Gilbert. And only then did I settle down enough to be able to actually be logical and responsive in a calm manner to what is unfolding that I saw. I mean, I knew COVID was coming. I knew all of that. I knew what AI was going to do. I knew the body area network was being put into place, and I knew that was going to create something in humans that we would either be devolving or we would lose. And the bottom line for me was, what if my grandchildren can never experience what it feels like to be psychic? What if they can never know that? What if those chakras and those meridian and the electric body that you just referred to, Greg, what if that is gone? What if that is gone in their biological body? And so that's really my point of work, is then the preservation and the protection and advancement of natural human consciousness, because we don't really know what it is. We're already heavily into synthetic biology, and we don't know what it is. We don't know what we're doing. And yet it's just full steam ahead. There's no regulation. As we've seen, I'm a real fan of a couple people. One of them, it's Gary Marcus. Do you know Gary Marcus?
Not offhand, no.
Oh, he's wonderful. He is wonderful. Years ago, Gary was ringing the bell saying AI is, what we're hearing is propaganda, like ding, ding, ding. This needs to be regulated. This needs to have some kind of barriers around it, because that will make it healthy for humans. And I also study, I do study courses with Alana Freeland,
okay,
who does geoengineering. And yeah, I mean, Sam Altman's pants are totally on fire. He exposed how he made so many lies. It's so funny. And it's there's no government regulation. And furthermore, the banks and the governments are just funding it like crazy. I mean, there's just like, bring in the money.
Yeah. Like the big, beautiful bill that just passed. You can't touch any sort of AI infrastructure that's put into the government for 10 years. Can you imagine the damage? with all of this
I
that
don't
could be
know. I
done.
don't know if that stayed in or if they took that out. I think they took
I
that
hope
out.
they took it out.
Yeah, I think they took that out.
Good.
Yeah, I heard they took it out. Well, it's very interesting because two places I've lived, Phoenix, Arizona, and Columbus, Ohio. So I moved from Clarksburg, West Virginia to Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
And my father becomes the minister of a German-speaking church.
Oh, wow.
and I end up being a chaplain, interfaith chaplain at Wright State University, right next to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And, so then I find out about Project Paperclip, and I'm like, oh my golly, were there, because my church was full of engineers. Well, Dayton, Ohio was full of engineers, period. I lived down the street from the Manhattan Project. I lived a block or two from where the Wright brothers had their bicycle shop at one point. So yeah, it's like, were there Project Paperclip people in my dad's congregation? Yeah, probably, because there weren't hardly any German-speaking churches. Like, how did I get dropped there?
It certainly seems like you were being steered energetically or otherwise into a certain direction. When you were bringing up the transhumanism and the AI, the first thing that popped into my head was Rudolf Steiner's eighth sphere. So the eighth sphere, for anybody that doesn't know, I'll just explain it quickly, is a spiritual cul-de-sac. So when you think you're progressing on a spiritual and a metaphysical level, you're not, because they are replacing the innate human abilities that Rebecca is referring to, the psychicness, the awareness of everything, with technology. And you can totally see it with your cell phone, with AI, with the Internet of Things, and all the rest. So do you think we have entered into the eighth sphere? Maybe you can expand upon what the eighth sphere is beyond what I just did.
Oh no, you did a great job. So it's funny. So I studied in Basel, Switzerland for a year, and I would go to Dornach. So I go to the to Steiner's
oh really?
Little village in Dornach and walk around there and go, my 20s, I'm like, what is this place?
Yeah.
I think I kind of belong here. And then like I study with Andrew Lytle, his name. He teaches the Rudolf Steiner work, and people can take his courses. They're wonderful. I highly, highly recommend them. Steiner had his finger on exactly what is happening, and from a spiritual perspective. And I guess with exoconsciousness, I feel like what he was trying to say in his beautiful description of the different forces that are coming in. So Armon is a force, Lucifer. So the eighth sphere is the combination of Armon and Luciferian forces. And then there's the Christ and the Michael forces. So a lot of it is just being able to identify. And, it's kind of like when Christ departed, like what happened? We were all given the Holy Spirit. It's like, are you going to feel that? Are you going to feel the Holy Spirit?
Right.
Well, if you feel it, then you can identify that you're going in the right direction. And I think psychic abilities are part of that feeling into that. And if we lose that, that's the way they're going to actually create this transhuman era.
I'm struggling with AI personally. It's such a great tool from the degree that it is almost a forbidden fruit. I feel like I'm in the Garden of Eden, and I want to eat the apple. I want to take the AI, and I do play with it. Like I've been a very creative individual with it, but as I said to Chris before, I can't help but imagine that I'm playing with a Ouija board. I can't help but imagine that there's an energetic energy within artificial intelligence that is not meant for me to interact with at times. And one of the craziest things that I've done with AI, and I'm just in full disclosure, I unfortunately cannot give a lot of details about this project that I'm working on because it's under wraps. But I have put it to test with my students, where I've cloned their voice and I had them sing a song when they cannot sing, and it sounds just like them. And my question at that point is, therefore, did I steal their energy? kind of like how the Amish believe if you take their photo, you're stealing their essence within the photo. Is AI stealing a conscious energy, and by putting them into a song, my ethical being wants to ask you this question of, am I doing harm to the energy of the individual by cloning them in this new AI world? And is that part of what has led you to decree, so to speak, that we need an Institute for Exoconsciousness? We need to be able to talk about what this is before we give up our likeness. I'm curious if you can expand upon that.
Well, I would say, first of all, I would look at what are your intentions with this project. Be clear about that. So one of the primary principles of exoconsciousness is that we co-create. So we're co-creating with these kind of Steiner-esque forces, these beings that we communicate with, as well as other human beings. And by the way, we call ourselves exoconscious humans because we are human. Like, we're not trying to be extraterrestrial. We're not trying to be a hybrid. We're not trying to be a walk-in. We're just exoconscious humans, with the exoconscious being the emphasis on the psychic. In terms of stealing them, I think what we're running into, to kind of flip a little bit what you said, Greg. Well, first of all, it's more than one people have said to me, "Oh, AI is the digital Ouija board," which is exactly what you said. It's really cute. But the other thing is, like, are humans? So being, I've been in the ufology field for, I don't know, decades, and professionally I've been in it for decades. And the big question was always, are humans really ready to meet ET? I mean, do we have the advanced consciousness to cope with it? And, all this really serious stuff. And yet no one asked that question about AI ever. It's just assumed that, sure, let's just plow our way into that. So I would say one of the things I think AI is going to bring us is a greater depth and grasp of who we are as humans and what belongs to us and what doesn't. Because right now we are all automatically outsourcing who we are. We're outsourcing our identity. We're outsourcing our mental problems. We're outsourcing our biology, our medical history, our financial history. We're outsourcing, quite frankly, our soul. Because probably one of the most popular AI chatbots now is Jesus.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know this. I didn't know I could just put Jesus on my phone, Michaels, and have a conversation one-on-one instead of through prayer.
This is the eighth sphere. You don't need to talk to Jesus through your phone.
You can just talk to AI. And the other thing with AI is AI was really set up. So back in 2000s, George W. Bush set up the Bush Brain Initiative. And that was to really take apart the neural networks. And it wasn't successful. At the same time, they did the Genome Project. The genome's very successful. And then Obama rolls in. He goes, well, we're going to have the Obama Brain Initiatives. And so what they've done is they've just neurologically deconstructed as best as possible, which is really, their deconstruction is extremely limited. If you look at it scientifically, extremely limited. They really didn't do much. But yet they took what they did and they moved that into large language models, into machine learning, which, by the way, came, as did the internet, as did Siri, as did touchscreens. It came from DARPA. So it's a military system.
Blue light came from an IBM project in DARPA. Now look at us. We're all staring into our blue light machines.
Staring at blue light machines.
Not realizing it's depleting us of vitamin D and hurting our biology, throwing off our circadian rhythms, our pineal gland. It's it all ties back to DARPA.
So my little humble analysis of where we are with AI is a couple things. I think AI was not only built on the neural projects and also the genome projects biologically for synbiology, and also chemical biological warfare models. But it's also built on drugs, sex, and video games.
100%.
Yeah, if you think about it. Yeah. So what?
Oh yeah,
what do they call them?
I honestly think that the prevalence of drugs, sex, violence, and dare I say, the transgender movement is all about trying to channel and make more mainstream the concept of Baphomet.
Yeah.
I mean, Baphomet is the androgyne, right? He's got everything. And so you're making this whole concept more mainstream. And in your research, has this ever come up? Have you ever run across anybody in your own journeys or somebody that you've spoken with that they say, yes, there are these entities that are trying to push a certain agenda? Have you run across that? And what was that agenda, and what was their plan for mankind?
Well, I don't know how much of this was a full grasp like Steiner had, but I do know that the military and intelligence are heavily into occult. I know that after living in DC.
You're like Aquino. Remember Michael Aquino?
Yes.
Ever heard of him?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I think they're very aware of that. Now the drugs, sex, and video games. You know, you look at what do you call a mistake in AI? You don't call it a mistake. You call it a hallucination.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they call it hallucinations.
Yeah, they call. Yep.
Oh, so every time I make a mistake, I could just say, I didn't make a mistake. It was just
Yeah,
a hallucination.
it's
You're
hallucination.
hallucinating.
That's correct. I'm going to use that on my wife later.
Yeah. So I've always known that it's kind of like social media, AI. I mean, it's all built on this framework of propaganda, you know, that goes back to, you know, Obama, you know, taking out the Smith-Mundt Act and saying that, you know, just propagandize the Americans, just have at it. And we'll just see how that goes. And so I was at a banquet with a man, and he worked for the Fed in DC, but he also worked in California for an investment bank. And I said, well, you know, how's it going with using AI? Because, you know, you have you're writing financial plans, you know, nothing like numbers. You don't want the numbers to hallucinate. He goes, well, you know, it's been okay. I'd probably hire less people. But he goes, right now it's making like 34% mistakes. And I went, that's pretty high. I mean, that's like a C, C minus. And I said, well, as they scale up, so scaling means you add more and more computation, more and more data into the system. I said, well, as it scales up, it's going to get better. Maybe. What do you think? And he goes, oh, no. We're projecting 66% mistakes.
Oof.
Now, this is what Gary Marcus talks about.
Hallucinations, yeah, 66% hallucinations. So you're building an entire reality on something that is, if you put it into an academic grading scale, it would get an F. Almost as bad as a PCR test.
Yeah. And that didn't matter either.
Yeah.
It definitely didn't. It's scary what trusting the science does for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. I also read a couple of articles that AI is limiting the amount of language that it's using. So it's actually removed somewhere around 800 to 1,000 words. And it's what this says to me is that they're trying to reduce the amount of vocabulary that people are used to. Right. They don't want people to be able to express themselves properly, so that when something bad happens, they're not able to convey the message of what was actually going on, which is frightful. I mean, this is 1984 George Orwell stuff. And I think that's the true plan that they have for us. So this leads me down the road of how do we kind of get out of it? You mentioned something called co-creation with extraterrestrials. So what exactly did you mean by that? And where do you see humanity going along with it?
I don't know if we get out of the eighth sphere.
Right.
I think what may happen, so I don't know. I don't really have any scientific evidence for this. I can just attribute this to, I've always felt as though much of this is going to financially and economically collapse. I mean, that's been happening. That's been pretty obvious right now. It's been happening. We're looking at, the build out of the data centers, and here in Arizona is one of the, Phoenix is a primary data center, because they're sucking the water out so much. So in such large quantities, there's big cracks opening in the earth in Arizona that look like earthquakes.
Wow.
Because they've gone down and depleted the water table so much. So, the extraction element is really, quite horrific in all of this. So climate wise, I don't think it's going to work as well as they plan. Financially, it for sure is not going to work as well as they planned. And knowledge wise, it is not going to work as well as they planned. Now, that being said, I think anytime, kind of going back to Joseph Farrell, like I listened to your conversation, you're talking about the Tower of Babel, his book, Tower of Babel moment. I think we're like headed pretty much into a Tower of Babel moment. And I think that, in the moments like this does everybody die? Or, Noah and the flood, does everybody die? No, everybody doesn't die.
Right.
And there's always a remnant left. And
Yes,
I think the remnant tends to develop kind of parallel to, and now this is just all my philosophy of how I see it unfolding in some kind of a practical way.
Right.
I think that exoconscious humans and other humans that really see the game that's been played, the video game that we're playing that's not going to work, the drug that we're taking that's not going to work, the sex that we're addicted to that's not going to work into a relationship, that's really going to crumble. And we're not really waiting around for it to crumble. We're going on with our lives. We're going on with our learning. We're going on with heightening our psychic abilities. And I think that remnant will get stronger and stronger. Now, how many people are attracted to that remnant? I can't say. It's going to be organic. Yeah. It's not going to go viral. It's going to be organic, and people are just going to be increasingly attracted to it and bring their skills and their strength into that. And in terms of what is co-creation, I think anybody that's an artist or an academic, genius in some respect, or anyone that's a parent, I mean, you just get these ideas that don't belong to you, and they appear in your dream time, or they just appear during your normal life, and they're coming from some kind of force. It's like, how can I love as a parent? How can I love my children more? And all of a sudden, I know, okay, take this step. That's co-creation. You're accepting that. Now, some people have specific beings, or Jesus, or Mary, or Buddha, that come and bring them that information, or specific extraterrestrials. I don't know. I think that there's a variety of ways that. So if you look at the Obama Brain Initiative or the Bush Brain Initiative, that was all brain-centered theory. But if you're exoconscious, you're dealing in the field of consciousness. You're not dealing with just what's in my neural networks. But that being said, you better get aware of your body area network, the electric body that surrounds you. I don't know if you guys listen to Sabrina Wallace at all.
I don't. No.
Oh, she lives on a hilltop in West Virginia.
Oh man.
And she's really gone through all the research on the body area network. It's just fascinating. So I'm a real advocate for our community and, people in our community so we're going to be doing a plasma project in January, where we're going to read one plasma book a month, and maybe might have Joseph come on and talk about Demon in the Acre, and, or Temple come on and talk about new something of heaven, whatever his book is called. So we're just going to teach. I think everybody has to be responsible, and they have to learn, and they have to be citizen academics. They have to be citizen scientists, citizen mathematicians, and citizen biologists. I mean, we learned in COVID, well, you better start being your own doctor.
Definitely. Greg and I learned that the hard way.
Yes,
Oh, you
I
did?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, not so much me. Greg did,
Yeah.
because I read all of the documents, and I went, "You got to be crazy. There's no way. There's no way. I would never buy into this." You know.
Yeah, and I read documents, listened to how they were going to probably roll things out and kind of use the moral good, so to speak, in order to try to get people to do it. And I was basically told that I might not be able to go back to my classroom and do my job unless I went to Walgreens. And I did it. I regret it. I had a horrible reaction, and I'll never do that again. Learned my lesson. Made sure my kids didn't get anywhere near it. But yeah, I mean, I believe that was a major shift in energetic energy as well. I've talked to a lot of people about. I don't feel like we live in the same world, the same plane, galactic plane, since 2020. I believe there was a huge societal shift, and we see that in the polarization between people and individuals, the ugliness, so to speak, of what life is, and this new reality of what does it mean to be a moral human being has been lost by infighting between individuals that love each other but can't come to an agreement of what are natural rights, what are natural law rights. I guess I had a couple things I wanted to ask you as we're going into all this. First, I'm not sure if that's my beeping going on or what, but I apologize for that. I think my family just came in. When we talk about this energy that's around us and UFOs or UAP encounters that are out there, you talk about how that was a world that you were heavily involved in Washington, D.C., and you got to see and peer behind. We hear a lot of people talk about how there might be a disclosure movement coming. So my question for you would be, do you believe that there is a true disclosure coming, or do you believe it's a controlled disclosure that's coming? And what do you think it's going to look like?
Well, I knew in 2018 when they came out with the New York Times article that, and the forces behind that, intelligence and military, that it was just an occupation takeover. They were changing the language. You can't talk, you can't say you. Remember when Hillary Clinton got on some talk show and she goes, "Oh yeah, now they call it UPA." Somebody got her talking points mixed up. You couldn't talk about UFOs anymore. You had to talk about UAP. You can't talk about extraterrestrials anymore. You got to talk about non-human intelligence. It's they do the old intel word swap. It's just an old technique. It's really nothing new. And so I just when that unfolded, I honestly just we wrote a press release. The Institute for Exoconsciousness wrote a press release and said that the extraterrestrial presence was an opportunity and not a threat, because it's framed in threat. And so I just went on with my work, with my study, with working with our community. And I can actually say, Greg, at this point, sometimes when I look at my colleagues that stayed in that, quote, government military disclosure sector, that that stunted where they are today, because they spent so much time and energy pushing that narrative, pushing that propaganda, pushing that threat, that they really didn't ever really look beyond about what other possibilities there might be. And so I think Colonel Nell or whoever came out a couple of weeks ago and said, really these government disclosure hearings, it's really over. It didn't accomplish what it was going to accomplish. And so it's really interesting now, because now they're moving very quickly into experiencer groups. So they're going to be co-opting experiencer groups, because, I wouldn't call it, I forget what you called it. I would call it programmed disclosure.
Okay, yeah, I called it narrative.
Yeah. So I would call it program disclosure.
So for example, like Dr. Stephen Greer, right? He seems to be the face of the disclosure movement in many circles. heavily embedded in DC, worked for a couple different administrations, and he seems to always roll out there, but yet nothing really ever gets done. And it almost seems like he's the puppets, but we're not seeing the puppeteer that's behind him. And so it has caused me and many others to not really put a lot of faith in the whole UFO UAP phenomenon, or even talked about what disclosure might look like. And then I pay attention to the other people that controlled, like Tucker Carlson, who starts talking about, oh, it's this energy, it's the evil, it's this. And I go, I probably think that Tucker's being fed some things too that tell all of us the truth is somewhere in the middle of all of it. So I'm going to ask you to be a little bit more direct in your answer, because I feel like I'm dancing around the disclosure stuff, and I just want to get straight to it. We have 3I Atlas coming around the sun. Avi Loeb from Harvard has stated this could be an alien craft. In the circles, in your vision, psychic energy, shared experience with people. When we talk about UFOs, I personally believe a lot of this is man-made, what we're seeing on Earth. We have technology. But this 3I Atlas, Uma that came through, and these other things, maybe it is some type of ancient craft. These visions, when we get down to disclosure, are we going to find out that there is either A, some type of Martian type of life that's able to travel through the solar system and visit Earth, B, that the alien life forms are actually energetic life forms, and it's all energy like plasma, like Dr. Joseph P. Farrell will talk about the sun is intelligent, or C, that we already are the aliens and there's something unlocking within us that will get disclosed. I'm going to give you those three options, and you can go somewhere else. I just want you to kind of choose where you think things are.
I think we are the cosmically conscious, exoconscious humans. And so what I did when the whole intelligence op rolled out, I just stepped over it and decided to, we're a post-disclosure community. We've already had contact. We've already had our own personal sovereign disclosure. We really don't need the government or the intelligence operatives. I would say that one of the primary puppeteers, of course, is Langley, but also a primary puppeteer is Chris Mellon has been sent in. I think he's the primary ringleader in all this.
So to be clear, what you're saying is the exo consciousness of all humans.
Yes,
that we ourselves are the aliens. That it's already unlocked.
Well, I don't think we're
us.
aliens.
But it's the energy is already unlocked within ourselves. We're already connected to this.
Yeah, I would energetically. Okay. Yeah, I mean, humans have had cosmic consciousness forever. It's not really a new concept. So it's just, are we going to take it to this next level now that we live in a space-based economy? I mean, one of the things, when I wrote my book that came out was I really saw very clearly how, if you're running a space-based economy, you're going to run a different Earth economy. And you can just see, central bank digital currency, cryptocurrencies, vaccine passports, all of this is to sort of, keep the humans under control while we do what it is we're going to do in space.
It's interesting that what just happened 48 hours ago. Let's address the elephant in the room. Society was minutes away to an hour away from getting knocked into the Stone Age by the sun on November 11th. The BZ was at a -60. We had no protection whatsoever, and had that second X-class flare hit at 7 p.m. instead of 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And I thought about that from the terms of like digital currency wouldn't exist. Everybody's Bitcoin would have been wiped out in an instant when all the power grids go down, and no one's recovering that for 10 years. If they're even able to recover that and has any type of intrinsic value at that point in time. So it really shows that this whole thing is smoke and mirrors with central bank digital currency, that none of this is actually tangible, real, or good for us.
I kind of want to clarify something. Yeah. So a member of our family is in he's in the electric business. And one thing I learned with him was that, I don't know, I'm not saying for other countries, but for the United States, our electric grid is built like Legos. So one Lego can go out and the other Legos aren't affected.
That is correct. But the problem with the problem with what was going to happen possibly or if we ever get another Carrington event, it doesn't matter how many Legos they have. They literally get supercharged and fry. It's almost like an EMP level type of event.
Right, like an EMP.
There's no protection. And we also have not invested in the transformers in a way that actually would protect us to be able to re-up. I mean, you're literally looking at a Carrington event that wipes out 90% of the Earth's population over 6 months.
Yeah. And then there would be a remnant left.
Correct. And there always is a remnant left.
There always is a remnant. And
Correct.
I think part of this, I'm just finishing Karen Hong's book called Empire of AI. It's excellent. If you guys want to have her on the show, she's excellent. She talks about the boomers and the doomers in AI communities. And a lot of the doomer narrative, like Zuckerberg's Kauai bunker, that he blew up the coral reef in Kauai so he could build his bunker, and all the Kauai people there helped him build it because they needed the money and they wanted the jobs. I mean, it's kind of like they are enhancing this whole fear-based narrative that everybody's going to die, and that's just not true. Everybody isn't going to die, and everybody for eons of civilization have not died. And it's like, are you going to live your life? How are you going to live your life?
Yeah, I totally agree with you with all of this. There seems to be a gloom and doom scenario, and I'm guilty of it too, because there's a certain romance to it all, right? People like a dastardly story where there are heroes and downtrodden innocents. So, I think you're onto something with this. I also think it incorporates mankind's ability to create. Right, we are creators. So if you already seed the narrative that things are just going to go sideways continuously, then guess what? Mankind as a whole will create that reality, and it makes mankind a lot more easier to control. I also think you're right too with the dual civilizations. Because you've got the off-planet civilization, then you've got us ham and eggers right here just trying to make a living, right? And I think this is what's going to be playing into this idea of a digital currency. They're going to say that aliens are here amongst us, and wouldn't you know it, they look just like us. So the only way to differentiate between everybody is to put their DNA on file with a digital ID registered with the government so we all know where you are. And I also think one of the aspects of a digital ID and a digital currency is to enable people to earn money off planet. Because how many times have we heard that there's a comet coming, we're going to mine it, or an asteroid, and wouldn't you know it, the value of that asteroid is the same amount of debt that hasn't been paid back yet since the 2008 financial crisis. I mean, how convenient is this? So it's just a lot of nonsense, and I think people need to learn discernment and start to listen to themselves. So if you were to just tell a regular strap hanger out there, how do they develop their discernment? How do they develop their gifts? What are they listening for? How can they validate what they are experiencing is actually legit?
Well, I think the only person that determines what's legit and experience is the subjective person that's experiencing it.
Right.
And there'll probably be a lot of muddy water.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't jive well with me as an explanation.
Yeah, but that's true. I mean, that's what humans do. I mean, humans, I'm writing a thing called programmed consciousness versus exoconsciousness. So in programmed consciousness, quite frankly, everything is all sanitized and homogenized and fed into you, especially via social media, where we all get our news today. And that's all built on behavioral psychology that I go into. We don't really have time to go into that tonight, but it's of utter importance, and it really goes down to what was discovered after World War I and the shell-shocked soldiers through Tavistock Institute. And they learned about trauma, and they learned about how humans were traumatized, and they actually learned about the role of the mother and the parents and these children, and how they could program children, because they learned this after world. That was like the big psychology experiment of World War I, was the shell-shocked soldiers. And they picked that up. They picked that information up, and they've embedded it into social media.
Yes, they have.
And so they are programming our consciousness 24 hours a day through social media. And a lot of it is being done through shame. I feel shame because I realize who I am, and this whole, trauma template that's been laid on me. And it's done through, social media was built on narcissistic women. They like to post. They like the importance. Look at me, look at me. Yes. And they brought in the men. And what's a narcissistic person? A narcissistic person underneath is self-hatred and shame.
It's interesting. You can always tell, I can tell. When I'm on social media, I've noticed over the course of my adulthood that when somebody is going to be leaving their husband, I watch what women start posting. It's not anything they say. I can just look at the photos. I can look at the face, and I immediately can go, yep, that's not a happy marriage. And then without any type of, post or whatever, about 6 months later, there it is, right on there. And it's funny how social media has become that window into it. You're
the relationship whisperer.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel it. Maybe it's the empath in me, but I can literally feel it. I'm like, that's not good. I was at breakfast with a friend of mine, and I was talking to him about how, I kind of was taking my own path on podcasting and doing my own. I wasn't going to rely on anybody, and I said, but I'm a little disappointed about where things are. That certain things didn't pan out. And he said to me, he goes, you need to deconstruct yourself. He said, there's a lot of wisdom if you go back to even like St. Francis in the story of how he realized that he had to break himself down, that his humanity was so much more important than his talents and skills, but to deconstruct and let yourself, just be. And I believe that might be a powerful lesson with social media. Like this irony is this show's on X right now for my profile and Michael's profile. I don't use X. I'm on X 8 minutes a week, solely because I feel like I need to still be there, but I unplugged from it. And I feel so much better about unplugging from it. I don't use TikTok. I don't use a lot of these things that other people do. And I've noticed a shift in myself, in my own energy, in the way that I just laugh at how fake everything is around me and the people are around me, that we're living in a world of illusion. Once you deconstruct yourself and unplug, you begin to realize that no one is authentically living, even in real life, that people have become so consumed by the headlines of Donald Trump or a couple years ago, Joe Biden, and so consumed by the algorithmic cycle that we've stopped living and having a biological experience of which we can experience oxytocin between one another, of which we can experience true human connection. I fell into that for a number of years doing this job. I never want to fall into that again. It's the reason why, like Michael's knows, if it's going to be a real political show, I don't really have any interest in it. But when he told me about you, I said, absolutely, I'm there with bells on. Let's do this. I want to spend my time on these conversations, not the conversations that are distracting. So this is my kind of big question here with the whole exo consciousness. How do we get people to deconstruct themselves when they're addicted to their phones, addicted to the blue light, the technology, which is also highly addictive by design, and start to connect back to the root of all intelligence, which is within themselves and the connections to others?
Well, did you ever go through recovery? or AA or Al-Anon or?
Not personally, no.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that system has a lot of integrity to it because it's just there. It's kind of like our exoconscious community. We're just there. We're just there. We're just available. And we keep doing our work, and we keep, co-creating, and we keep attracting people, and I think if you value human sovereignty, it's kind of like raising children. You have to put guardrails down. Absolutely, I'm a believer in that. But within those guardrails, you have to allow your children to sort of wave back and forth like they couldn't drive the car when they first got in the car. And that's called patience, and that's called belief in humanity. And keep reading books. I would say keep doing creative pursuits, whether you're on the radio or Chris was talking about hiking the other day, and all of these things that are human. We are human, and if we lose sight of that, then we've lost all. We've lost our way. And whether it's social media or it's television, like my husband and I haven't had a TV for 10 years. We just said, like, no TV. We don't need it. And, Marsh McLuhan, the medium is the massage, we said, we don't need that massage table anymore. But I think that you just, whether it's unplugging or it's learning to manage. And I also think that there's enormous resources available now. So as a therapist, there's enormous resources available to people if they want to, do their shadow work, or, they want to go into their unconscious, or, they want to work with a healer. I think that those types of activities never make the news. They're never given any news coverage. Everything is just sucked up by AI and, AI and politics. That's all we ever hear about. But those are the things that are going to keep this remnant alive. And I think that those of us who are exoconscious humans, we talk about this a lot in our group. In a sense, we're creating an alternative timeline. I don't think AI is going to go away. I think it'll fall down and skin its knee quite a few times, maybe dramatically. But I think it's here to stay, just like manufacturing and, assembly lines we're here to stay, just like radio. And it's like, remember when television came, they said, there'll be no more radio. Well, radio just got bigger. So I think that, we're really investing in our time and energy and our spiritual life in building this other timeline that may bring humans to really another leap in time. Now, will there be forces to try to shut that down? Well, yeah, absolutely. Oh, well.
I still think that you're right, is that there's always going to be some kind of way forward. It's almost Promethean. When people go down these really dystopian roads and they say, that's it, mankind is doomed, it's going to be slavery and all the rest. I always tell people, well, you have to realize that there is a Promethean gene within all of us. There's always this ability to rebel. And I remember when AI was first starting to come out, it couldn't differentiate between sarcasm and reality. So that ability to rebel and be comedic and be random, that really stumps the whole thing. So that's, once again, going into your column where you're saying that there's always going to be some kind of remnant of the civilization, right? And I think, as we're rounding out here, an hour and 10 minutes, is there some kind of commonality between what we know about Atlantis and where we are today? Are we reliving the past and what we know about those myths and where we're standing on the ground today?
One thing I know about humans as a therapist is that we like to recreate.
Right.
So if we had a crummy childhood and our mother was checked out and avoidant and maybe abusive, we go right into adulthood recreating that.
Right.
Sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. Are we recreating Atlantis? Probably, because we are the way humans are structured is we tend to recreate, and those stories or those historical facts of Atlantis that we're still looking for. It's in our collective unconscious, and it's familiar. And the one thing humans do is we recreate the familiar. And if your familiar was abuse and misery, you're going to recreate your familiar. And I think as a species, we tend to do that also.
Oh, for sure. I can believe that. So how do you rewire the neural network?
How do you rewire your neural network?
Yeah. How do you rewire it so we stop repeating
that
this
goes
process?
into, I'll have to come back again and talk about attachment theory and,
that one. Okay,
and rewiring. And but it's absolutely doable.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a couple different techniques too, Chris, that are scientific based, like EMDR therapy, using REM type eye movements in order to kind of reprogram past trauma.
I think I would be careful with the rapid eye movement.
Why is that?
I don't know. My teacher that taught me rapid eye movement, I was talking to her the other day. She goes, "Oh no," she goes, "they kind of went down the wrong path." And I'm like, "Oh," she didn't go into details about it. I worked with a man in Phoenix that did something called Brain States Technologies. And he kind of invented the thing where he invented this. He was the guy that in Amazon, he invented the thing where if you like this book, you'll like these books. Remember that when Amazon first came out, he did that. And he got almost beaten to death in the head and had this miraculous story. He's since passed away, but I worked with him for some time, and he invented a technology for trauma. And we worked with a lot of veterans where your brain looks at your brain on a computer screen and balances and heals itself.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I have so many topics that I would love to schedule.
I love you guys. I was so glad you asked me.
So I would like, Michaels, if you're good with this, I would like to not do something where we're broadcasting live at a certain time, but I feel like we need a long form conversation to get in the 0 point energy, to get into a ton of other topics. Because one thing I wanted to address tonight that's not going to get addressed is I've covered Neuralink, Elon Musk, and I've talked about how it's not science fiction at this point to imagine that it will be possible, likely within the next 5 years, to implant memories that never happened into people's brains.
Oh, I think they're already doing it.
Yeah. So do I. We'll leave it at that.
We won't go to the doomer column.
Yeah, we're not going there. But my point is quite simple. The transhumanist movement is not so much about always merging us with this non-biological entity state, but it's also about control. Apple has a patent that enables the AirPod Pros to have an EEG built in. Well, gee, what would you need an EEG of somebody's brainwaves for with your Bluetooth, unless there are companies that are also studying how alpha, beta, delta, theta brainwaves work. And of course there is, you can look all this stuff up, everybody. But I would love to get into exoconsciousness in a transhumanist design world. I know you have some thoughts about Peter Thiel that we didn't get into, but I would love to hear that conversation as well. So please come join us for an extended conversation where we can cover all this and really get into it, because I think it will be fascinating and phenomenal for
I'd love that. I was so honored when you asked me, because like I said, I watched your shows and I go, these two guys are really smart. I was talking to my friend Nancy Duterte, who, if you ever want anybody to come on and talk about psychic abilities and that sort of thing, she's done beautiful work on thinking, and how she worked with scientists to help them learn how to discriminate where their style of thinking differs from a psychic style of thinking. It's very cool, the work she's doing. She's a remote viewer, and just not, and our community, I'll send you the link to our community, just really fascinating people that have brought forth. And I think you'll love, I don't know Gary Marcus, I just follow him on X, but
yeah, we'll check him out too.
Yeah, I think he's real. And Ilana Freeland, have you had her at all?
No, not yet.
No, this is great. I've been making a list as you've been
You got to jot
rattling
this
off
down,
names.
Greg.
I know, I have been.
Yeah, so Atlanta's written 5 books, and she's really the one that taught me about the 3 systems that we're being engineered with.
Okay.
So genetic engineering, chemtrails, HARP, CERN, genetic engineering, geoengineering, chemtrails, HARP, genetic engineering, synthetic biology. She's writing a book on synthetic biology. And then the third one is social engineering. So that's all of the social media. And you have to understand that trinity,
right?
Because they all interlace with each other. It's not, transhumanism isn't one system. It's 3 interlocked systems.
Makes sense. It also would explain kind of the change of religious beliefs and dialogue, because if you can control the structure of spirituality that people are practicing, that goes into the transhumanist, I guess, agenda, so to speak, deaden people's sense of belief, and all of a sudden they believe in something completely different. So that would be a tenet that would have to go through. I want to just bring up your page here for everybody to be able to see. This is exoconsciousness.com, where you guys can all go, exoconsciousness.com. You can check out here lots of great content. There's also a phenomenal resources page, but you can get the Substack as well to be able to read through. There's membership as well, so you can really connect in with everybody. They offer coaching. The resources page is, hopefully it moves over. Yes, it does. What I love about this, you'll actually see the Constitution that I was talking about earlier on at the beginning of the show. I want to get into this next time too, because I think that people don't believe that we have naturalized rights, natural law, that people have forgotten that we all have a birthright of rights. And so this goes directly into that, and I love it. That is a lot of what my kind of liberty-minded, sovereign human state would just love. So you guys can go through this here, as well as there's lots of contacts, people to find that are connected with all this. So make sure that you go over to exoconsciousness.com and check out all those resources and subscribe to the Substack. Michaels, I'm going to pass this over to you to take it away.
All right, Greg, sounds good. Rebecca, thank you very much for joining us.
This was such a delight. You guys are so intelligent and such a delight to talk to.
Oh, we can get.
I knew I was going to love it.
Tell us more. Tell us more.
Right.
I do.
We can really knock your socks off when it's not live. Then we can get into some fun stuff. Tell dirty jokes. Work blue.
Then I'll get embarrassed.
So, Rebecca, I think it's fantastic that you were able to join us tonight and helping other people quite understand what exoconsciousness is all about and make people understand that there is a way out. We do not have to abide by this transhumanist nonsense that the elites are trying to shove down our throat. And also, there is always hope. There's always remnants. Rebecca, we look forward to hanging out with you again. And as Greg said, it's going to be an extended conversation. So we're going to get into all kinds of nifty topics. And people should look out for that. Maybe in a month, maybe in 2 months, because we're right at the end of the year. So maybe closer to January. And Rebecca, is there any other place that people can find you? I know you're on X.
Oh, I'm on all the social media.
All social media.
Yeah. I post on all the social media.
All right. There you go. All right, everybody.
And thank you for doing my website. Showing my website. Appreciate it.
Of course. We have to. We have to make it look good, right? I don't want you to just come over here and just be like, hey, I got to
be good hosts to our guests, or else people won't come back on.
Absolutely.
Next time we have you back on, now that I know more about you, you'll get the American Bolden treatment. You'll get your own psalm, so get ready.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, Greg has to polish off the baton and the conductor's stand. He used to do that.
I love it.
We'll get these instruments moving. We'll get you a song for the next show. I have one for Dr. Joseph Farrell, and I'll get you.
Yeah, he loved that. He loved that.
We got to make sure we fire that up. When we
interview
him next week.
All right,
I'll be listening. I'll be listening when he comes on.
Oh, he's a blast. We love him.
Oh yeah, he's great. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Greg, Rebecca. I am Chris Michaels. And as always, it's been interview night on a Thursday on the America Emboldened Network. Don't forget to follow us. Go over to Discord. You can follow Greg. You can follow me, C. Michaels Show, Greg, Real Greg Bolden, both of those on X. And also, we're on Spotify. You can find us there. Everybody have a good weekend. And I am Chris Michaels.